The NFL preseason has officially begun. We have teams that are already in mini camp. We have blurbs coming out from writers and team staff members. So, if you're an IDP, you've played before, you know the importance of finding value for cheap when it comes to defensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs. And that's what we're going to try to do on this episode. So, now that the preseason is kicked off, it is time for all you IDP managers to go back to IDP school and do your research because you know the more research you put in now, the better your chances are to win your league and get over on some other guys who maybe lack on their research. So we're going to take a look at linebackers who could hold strong value this season if they win their training camp jobs. Welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast. I'm your host, Johnny. You can find my Twitter at the bottom of the screen for all you people who are not viewing. I am at Johnny freaking F1 on Twitter. Give me a follow. The season's just kicking off. We got a lot of information. I'll have a lot of tweets on training camp battles for positions, not only with linebackers. That is what we're going to talk on this episode, but IDP in general. And check out some videos that we've been coming out with. We do have rankings coming up for all you people who are wondering about redraft IDP rankings. We do have that coming up. But before, preliminary to that, we need to find out training camp battles that are going to have fantasy implications, things that we need to be watching for coming into the regular season. IDP owners know that this is the time where you find your diamonds in the rough. If you look back at the history a few years ago, preseason research is how you found guys like Darius Leonard, how you found Ivan Pace 2 years ago, Zach Bond and Diane Henley last year in 2024. So doing this research now is imperative to getting ahead on your league mates in your IDP fantasy leagues. Not all these guys that I mentioned may have significant value, but it's fun to talk about guys who have had success and guys who could. So we're going to start it off here looking at the training camp battle for the Rams. I think this is a juicy spot. The Rams proved time and time again that they can have two productive linebackers there, taken back to the Bobby Wagner and Ernest Jones days. Let's look at a couple guys this season that could have fantasy impact. As it stands right now, the depth chart reads Troy Reeder and Omar Spates at the starting inside linebackers for the for the Rams, but things could change. They also have Nate Landman. They have Chris Paul Jr., a rookie who they drafted this year. So it really looks like a mess coming into training camp. And again, this is just preliminary. We don't know exactly who's going to be a starter or starters on this defense as far as linebackers, but somebody who I'd like to see start, and we know what he does. He got signed here. He was a free agent. Nate Landman is just such a very intriguing player to me. Again, I know we see Troy Reeder and Omar Spates as the starting inside backers, and that might be the way it rolls out. But we really don't know much about Omar Spates. We know Troy Reeder, who he is. He's a 30-year-old, kind of getting later in his career. We haven't seen him stay healthy, so Nate Landman could get a shot here for the Rams. He's still only just 26 years old. Last season, you kind of maybe forgot, left a bad taste in our mouths. He only had 81 tackles and one pass defense. That's right, no sacks. He's not that type of player, so that's okay with me. If you know me, I play tackle-heavy leagues, and it doesn't matter even if it's big play scoring. I'm still not banking on things that happen 4 or 5 times a year. I'm banking on the things that happen over 100, 120 times. So Nate Landman, I think he could be that linebacker again. Don't forget, folks, that in 2023, in a career year, he played 75% snaps with the Falcons, had 110 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 3 pass defense. And this past year, like I said, a little bit of a down year, only 81 tackles, only played 13 games. So that kind of is an asterisk next to it. And the more heavier caveat to me is only 65% of snaps per game on average did Nate Landman play this 2024 season. So I'm just throwing it out, to be honest with you. And I'm looking at 2023. Nate Landman, kind of an interesting guy. I believe he was born in Zimbabwe, undrafted free agent out of Colorado. This guy is a banger. And that's what I like to have in my IDP lineups. You don't have to be the starting Mike linebacker. You don't have to be a household name to get it done in IDP. And Nate Landman has shown he can do that before. again, they have Troy Reeder there. Troy Reeder, we're going to pay attention and take heed to him if he is indeed the starter. Like I said, had trouble staying healthy his career. Believe this is his fifth year in the league. Last season only played 6 games, but in those 6 games averaged 7.5 tackles. So Troy Reeder, if it stands, he's the one of the inside linebackers, maybe the Mike linebacker there. He does hold value, and he's somebody who we want to roster, and he's a perfect, fit the mold guy. You don't have to spend much draft capital, not a household name. So Troy Reeder, could cement himself and have a solid year. Maybe a Christian Rozeboom, little poor man's Christian Rozeboom there. But at this point, yeah, I think that Troy Reeder probably, because he's a veteran, he's been there for a while, he's going to get the nod. So we're kind of looking at the second linebacker spot, for either Spates or Nate Landman. And Omar Spates, undrafted free agent himself, had 10 starts in his rookie year. He did seemingly pretty well, averaged about 6 tackles a game. Had some better games than had some good games, had some bad games for IDP. Wasn't very consistent for us, but the potential's there with Omar Spates. He's a good, fast sideline to sideline linebacker, and that's kind of how Nate Landman is. Maybe even better for IDP, what he brought from the Falcons in 2023. I think if he's that type of player and we get him as the starter instead of Spates, I think Nate Landman could actually be better for us in IDP. So we're hoping and praying that Nate Landman finds his way out of as one of those starting inside backers for the Rams. Again, so, my infatuation with him is he's just a guy who's a banger when it comes to tackles, and that's what we bank on. Something that happens 120, 130 times optimistically for Nate Landman is a lot easier to bank on than a player who can get you 4 or 5 sacks. So bottom line, if he gets 110 tackles, Nate Landman this is, if he gets 110 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 3 pass defense in 15 games, only playing 75% of the team defensive snaps, sign me up if he plays 85 to 90, because I'd like to see that. I bet it turns into 120 tackles or more. Maybe he gets some sacks in there. So that's a very discounted player. I think a very forgotten about player who can hold value. I'm not saying that at this point, if you have a redraft draft coming early, you need to draft and start Nate Landman with confidence. It might be week 2, week 3. Somebody might, there might be an injury to Spates or Reeder, again, that puts Nate Landman on the map. But when he is on the map, we know what he is capable of doing. And he's a consistent player as far as tackles. Don't think he's going to have many double-digit tackle games. But if he can get 6 to 8 tackles a game for cheap, for free, basically, Nate Landman can be a very useful IDP linebacker. So don't forget about him. Again, it could be Omar Spates that ends up being the starter too. And these are more prove-its. The middle linebacker we're going to buy into. We're going to say holds more value off the jump. But there can easily be a second linebacker that it emerges in this linebacking unit that is useful for fantasy purposes as well. So this is one of those teams who can have 2 strong linebackers for IDP. So Nate Landman, don't forget about him. Hopefully he gets some starts. I have more confidence starting him as a starter than Omar Spates. Moving on to the second situation room here with linebackers. This is probably my favorite name, the most confident player I have on this list, and that's Jack Sanborn. I'm watching what he's doing. He's still only 24 years old. It feels like he's been in the league 4 or 5 years. But that's not the case. He's still young. He is an undrafted free agent. But a couple things here. I mean, I do think he's going to be a starter right off the jump. He gets reunited with defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. And right now, as it stands, DeMarvion Overshown is on the depth chart as ahead of him. But Overshown, is not going to be. He had a horrible knee injury last year, albeit a great season. So maybe he's somebody that comes back and takes the position back. From our boy Jack Sanborn, but Jack Sanborn has just been so productive when given the chance. I don't think there's going to be a way that they can get Jack Sanborn off the field this year. I was hoping with Chicago he can get a full-time role, but he never really was able to. I do believe for fantasy we were hoping that he'd start over Tremaine Edmonds. He'd be a better IDP linebacker, no doubt, than Edmonds, but wasn't the case. But we did see some flashes last year. Sanborn, if you look at the year as a whole, only 35 tackles. He did have a sack and a half, 3 pass defense, and 2 tackles for loss. Not too much to write home about, but individually, when we look at games that he started. That last year, I don't believe he had any starts, but if we go back to 2023, that would have been his second year. He had 2 starts, and in those 2 starts, playing 100% of snaps, he had 17 tackles, average of 8.5. That's beautiful. Looking at his rookie year now, 2022, he had 5 starts. In those 5 starts, he had 54 combined tackles, an average over 10. Very rare to have in fantasy football, very elite as well. He also, in those 5 games, had 2 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. So a lot of people are going to wonder if he's going to be the middle linebacker or the weak side linebacker. I do think he's a starter no matter what, which is why I'm so high on him. So this is a guy who's cheap. I believe he's going to be hyped up a lot in the IDP community. But to me, I'm not really worried about what position he plays. They have Eric Murray there too. Or I'm sorry, Kendrick Murray, uh, playing one of those linebacker spots too. But it doesn't matter whichever, Kenneth Murray, if he's playing middle linebacker, if Jack Sanborn's playing middle linebacker, they're both going to bang. Last year we saw Eric Kendricks and Overshone have great seasons. And you know what? Overshone had a great year, but he's not really my kind of linebacker. He did have some eruptive games where he had 7, 10 tackles and a sack, and those are very valuable. That's elite IDPs at their at that weekly output, I'm sure. But at the same time, I want a guy who can give me 8 to 10 tackles consistently. Not really worried about the sacks. Not really worried about the interceptions. If you can give me 8 to 10 tackles a game, like Eric Kendricks did last year, you have a spot on my team. So Jack Sanborn, I do believe, is that guy. Again, only 24 years old, immense potential. This is a guy who's flying under the radar. He did not garner a heavy payday. He did not receive a large amount of money to come to Dallas, but I think it's a great signing for Dallas. And as it stands right now, him and Murray are the 2 starting linebackers. I think Murray has value too. But at this point, I think Murray might be the guy who you want to start on week 1 and get the safer 6 to 8 tackles. But don't be surprised if Jack Sanborn is the leading tackler there for the Cowboys this season. So I'm very high on Jack Sanborn coming into this year. Let's see what training camp says. See if they're going to start him. The risk you run with some of these training camp guys. Last year we talked about our darlings, Trenton Simpson, Junior Colson. It did not work out for those guys. So sometimes, you jump into a player, you have a lot of hype, and you start him week 1, and you kind of get burned. So maybe Jack Sanborn is a week 2 to week 17 starter. Maybe you don't want to exactly run him out, throw him out into the fire immediately until we get that confirmation that he is a full-time starting linebacker, maybe even at the middle. So if he's middle linebacker starting, absolutely week 1. This is a guy who let everyone draft Fred Warner, let them draft TJ Edwards. Great linebackers, but I'm not paying that price. I'm getting a guy like Jack Sanborn or even Kenneth Murray for cheap. So Jack Sanborn and Kenneth Murray, but Sanborn especially is the sleeper to look for there. Let's see what happens in training camp, but a lot of hype should come with Jack Sanborn. Moving on, a couple vets now I can say. Trevin Wallace is in his second year, so technically a vet, right? But I'm interested to see Trevin Wallace and the Christian Rozeboom. Obviously, we're coming into the season thinking Josie Jewell is the linebacker 1 on the inside there for Carolina, and I'm firm on that. I do believe that, truly believe that. He had a great year. 3 games last year Jewell had in the middle of the season. I believe it was like week 10 through 12. I believe he had 10, 10, and 12 tackles, so literally 32 tackles in 3 games. I think he had a sack or 2 during that span. So Josie Jewell hit his stride in Carolina, and I expect him to bring that back, run it back this year. But I do believe that Trevin Wallace and Christian Rozeboom, one of the 2, can have some standalone value by themselves. I think Carolina is going to be a little bit improved this year defensively. I like their line. They have some castaways from the Vikings there, but I do think that this is an underrated linebacking core and a good spot for fantasy. Albeit Trevin Wallace only played 63% of defensive snaps in 2024 last season, of course, in 13 games. But really, it was only 11 games. I think in those first 2 games, he only got a snap or 2. So in 11 games, he had 64 tackles, just about 6 tackles a game, which is decent. He had a sack, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 tackles for loss. And Trevin Wallace, we remember him when Josie Jewell went out. He got the chance to be the middle linebacker and take over for Josie Jewell. I believe he had 17 tackles in those 2 games. One of them, I believe, maybe 24 tackles. One of those games, I think, was 15 tackles he had, but kind of regressed, especially when Josie Jewell came back. I believe that third game that Josie Jewell was out, we tried starting Trevin Wallace with confidence, and he came back to earth. And then Jewell came back, and snaps dissipated. But Trevin Wallace, I think if you look his name on Google, a lot of people think he's going to have a breakout season, and to do that, he's going to need to play more snaps. The 63% snaps, you can't make fantasy value with that. So if he can get up somewhere to 80s or higher, I think Trevin Wallace can be a productive linebacker for IDP, even as the second guy here in Carolina. And if not, if it's Christian Rozeboom, last year in 17 games, was absolutely a banger himself. I love using that term, but Rozeboom only played 74% of the team's defensive snaps, and still had 135 tackles, almost an average of 8 a game. Still had a sack and 5 tackles for loss. So Christian Rozeboom, maybe it was the right situation, right time, right place for the Rams. Maybe he can continue this momentum over to Carolina and give Carolina a big boost there. Maybe Carolina brought him over for a reason, right? So they signed him. He was he was a free agent, but they ended up signing him. So I'm not sure at this point, to be honest with you, if he was signed to be a starter or signed to add depth, just in case Trevin Wallace isn't what they think. So again, Panthers are going to need their linebacker 2 to play more than the 70% Rozeboom played last year and the 63% Trevin played last year. So as it stands, we have Josie Jewell. We know who he is. I'd call him a low-end LB1, but maybe Trevin Wallace, Rozeboom, they can turn from LB3s to LB2s. So I'm interested to see how it goes. Again, probably neither of these guys are going to be week 1, especially in shallower leagues, week 1 stardoms. This is probably going to be a week 2, week 3, find out who's going to play the 80% or more of defensive snaps, if that's the case, and maybe roll with one of them. So Christian Rozeboom, we know his history, we know his track record. Trevin Wallace, we were high on him as a rookie last year, had some success early on. So these are guys we don't want to sleep on. We don't want to forget. Christian Rozeboom is only 28 years old. Trevin Wallace, and only in his second year. They could be mainstays for years to come. So let's see how it shakes out for the Panthers. But as it stands right now, both of those guys could have potential for us come the regular season. I just wanted to mention before I continue into the next linebacker battle, right now we have a promo going on with Fast Draft. If you have not heard of the Fast Draft app, very fast, like it says, very fast way to draft. You can draft best ball lineups, offense. My personal favorite is the IDP, the defensive, 6-man IDP league they have there. Best ball as well. For right now, you can get a first-time deposit match up to $50 with using the promo code PLUS. So once again, download Fast Draft. When you put your money in, it's a match. So if you put $20 in, you can get 20 from Fast Draft will match you $20, but the max is 50. So you might as well deposit 50 and get that extra 50 and do some drafts here, especially if you've done your research and you think you have a leg up on people, this early on. So Fast Draft app, check it out. I'm in a couple of those IDP leagues in there. I might join a couple more. You might see my name in there, so keep posted. Moving on to our next position battle, we are going to talk about San Francisco, the 49ers, also a juicy spot for linebackers. For years, we've seen Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, when he was healthy, play 100% of snaps. Last year was not the case with Devondre Campbell. He wasn't even playing 100% snaps before he got booted from the team. But I just think it's an outlier year. Don't look at this situation and say they don't play 2 linebackers predominantly. In San Francisco, I don't think that's the case. I think last year was an outlier. They really didn't have effective linebacker production from Campbell, especially. So I think this year there could be a chance for maybe 3. Maybe they're starting 3 linebackers. That's what the depth chart says right now. They have on the strong side, Nick Martin is the guy who I'm going to be intrigued about. Weak side linebacker is Dee Winters, who can also have value. And of course, we know the man in the middle there is Fred Warner. But one of these guys I believe is going to have some value next to Fred Warner, and one of them is going to play more than I'd say 75% of snaps. So there could be some LB2 value here. Maybe it's even more snaps than I'm thinking right now. So these guys, I'm not giving them much credit right now, but there's definitely room to grow. When we look at Nick Martin, he was drafted in the 3rd round of this season, so pretty high price tag to pay. You're probably going to want to kick the tires, see what you have in Nick Martin. Nick Martin ran a 4.53 40-yard dash, so he has great sideline to sideline speed. That's what his kind of bread and butter is, making those tackles. And let Fred Warner communicate, take some load off him, make the tackles, and that would be a great recipe if he can become a starter, especially at that weak side linebacker role. If he is strong side linebacker, and that's the way the season's going to start, that's his role in the defense, then we're not really too excited because, of course, when you are the strong side linebacker and you come off on passing downs, most teams deploy nickel packages, and that means the strong side linebacker comes off the field in those situations. But Nick Martin, this is 4.53, very fast for a linebacker, fits the mold as far as height and weight to play the weak side linebacker position. All he has to do is beat out Dee Winters. And Dee Winters, 6th-round pick in 2023, only 24 years himself, didn't really get a big opportunity last year with Campbell mudding things up in San Francisco. But last season, 15 games played, 44 tackles combined for Dee Winters, nothing to write home about. However, if you look at the last 3 games, at this point, Devondre Campbell was cut. We can call Dee Winters a starter for those last 3 games. He played 86% of the team's defensive snaps those last 3 games. And in those last 3 games had 22 tackles, right? So almost averaging almost averaging 8 tackles a game, over 7 tackles there in those last 3 games. So definitely some promise from Dee Winters. Not somebody to forget about if he is deemed the starter. But I think the higher upside pick here is going to be Nick Martin. Hopefully he can win that weak side role, and I think that gives him more value than it does Dee Winters. So again, whichever linebacker wins that weak side role, I'm not really interested in the strong side linebacker there. They're going to come off on passing downs, but maybe a see how it goes week 1, week 2. Again, in this situation, it's not Jack Sanborn we're talking about. I don't have much track record, much immediate confidence that Nick Martin is going to come out and be Drake Greenlaw. But who knows? He seemingly has that potential. They liked him a lot. They drafted him early. A lot of people are calling this a wasted draft pick because it was too early, they believe. But Nick Martin, he's got a challenge to rise up to. Let's see if he can get it done. So I'm interested to see who's going to be the LB2 for San Francisco. I think it can have some decent fantasy value, maybe even more than I'm thinking. So let's stay modest here. Let's keep the expectations in check. But I believe one of these guys we're going to be talking about this season coming up, especially in waiver wire articles, preseason rankings, maybe even depends on how it goes in the preseason and training camp and mini camp, things like that. So Nick Martin, Dee Winters, let's see who can win that battle. Moving on, we are going to go to Arizona. Right now, a player I believe that is being overlooked, maybe rightfully so, is Cody Simon. The jury is still out on him. They have Mack Wilson as it stands right now, playing the, I believe, weak side linebacker, and Akeem Davis-Gaither came over from Cincinnati. He may be a starter as well. He may play the middle. We know it's a 2 linebacker system here, so there's not going to be bread to feed for all 3 of these guys. But the most high upside I definitely believe right now is Cody Simon. Cody Simon was a 4th-round pick last season for Ohio State, had 112 tackles, 7 sacks, 7 pass defense. Now, talking about before, some of these guys, we had high hopes for Junior Colson last year. We had high hopes for Trenton Simpson. Here we are again for Cody Simon. I'm not saying this guy's going to come out in week 1 and ball, but they did draft him in the 4th round. They absolutely need help at linebacker. And I think that if he's deemed a starter, he's absolutely, I would say, in the top 30, top 32 linebackers for redraft immediately with high upside, room to even grow. Zaven Collins was a guy who was drafted a few years ago with decent draft capital. High draft capital. I believe it was a 2nd-round pick to the Cardinals, but Zaven Collins, as we know, did not work out as an inside linebacker there. So, this is kind of giving me Zaven Collins vibes. Maybe there's more, to be said here with Cody Simon. Maybe he's a better player, better fit for Arizona. But if he can become at any point that starting middle linebacker, keep in mind he played middle linebacker at Ohio State. He knows how to communicate with coaches. He had the earpiece in his helmet last year at Ohio State. Maybe that gives him a leg up on that middle linebacker job. And if he gets either one of those inside linebacker jobs, I think Cody Simon is a steal, is going to be somebody who's immediately I don't really even hear him talked about too much in Dynasty, but boy, if he gets that inside starting job next to one of these guys, and I think it might come at the expense of Mack Wilson. Mack Wilson, first off, just a guy who I'm writing off absolutely in fantasy football. He has a career high of 82 tackles. Yeah, he can get some sacks, but I'm not too worried about Wilson there at all. Mack Wilson, 16 games played last season, 75 tackles, 3 sacks. It was nice. 3 sacks is something to write home about. 4 tackles for loss, but if you can't give me more than 85 tackles, this is his fourth, fifth year now. I'm not really too enamored with Mack Wilson. Hopefully, it's Akeem Davis-Gaither and Cody Simon starting here at inside backer. And I think both could have value. Akeem Davis-Gaither, we're going to see if it was real or fake. His stretch run with Cincinnati last year, believe he's a good banger too. So if he's one of the starting linebackers, that's what we're hoping for in IDP. That it is Davis-Gaither or Gaither Davis and Cody Simon, and both of those guys, especially Simon, I believe, can have immense, tackle heavy scoring. So both guys you want to keep in mind. If Mack Wilson's the starting middle linebacker, run at your discretion. I'm not going to touch him. He's going to have to prove me wrong on that one, but I do think Cody Simon is the guy who's going to emerge here and become something in IDP at linebacker for us from Arizona. Moving on, we got a juicy one. Good landing spot here. Good elite fantasy, at least for the LB1. It comes to the Vegas Raiders, who lost. They lost Spillane. He's gone. He's at New England. We're not going to talk about him too much, but we will talk about Devin White, 27-year-old Devin White, who is penciled in right now at the weak side linebacker. And Landon Roberts, 31 years old, is listed as the middle linebacker. But there was also a couple guys on the team, younger guys, Tommy Eichenberg, Amari Gaynor, undrafted free agent Gaynor was. I believe Eichenberg was 5th or 6th round, but Eichenberg was somebody who I was excited about, especially in Dynasty last year. Had high praise coming into the preseason from then coach Antonio Pierce. Of course, Pete Carroll takes over. Tommy Eichenberg last season did not really get his fair shake, probably because most likely that Robert Spillane didn't give up many snaps. He was on the field close to 100% of snaps every game. I'm not sure if Devin White and Landon Roberts, if that combo, I get it. They're vets. They've been there, done that. Landon Roberts won 2 Super Bowls. Devin White was an elite player at one point. I'm not really content that that's the way it's going to end. Certainly not for the whole year, but maybe not even for coming into the first couple weeks of the season. I think that there's an opportunity here for Tommy Eichenberg to be actually named a starter. Will Devin White work out in the inside, as a weak side linebacker? Maybe he's better on the strong side. Landon Roberts, him playing middle linebacker, he's 31 years old. Big hitter. We like that. And, the tackles can be there. But is he going to sustain that the whole year without Eichenberg getting a lick in there? So, Tommy Eichenberg, this is a guy who's not put in a box saying he's going to only, have strong side linebacker chance to win a job. Maybe Devin White, is thrown out by another team like he was for the Eagles, and maybe Tommy Eichenberg has a shot to win the middle linebacker job. Maybe it's a weak side linebacker job, and Landon Roberts plays the middle. But I think all of these guys, the jury is still out. We don't know what's going to happen yet. As it stands, like we mentioned, Devin White and Landon Roberts, the vets look like to have an upper hand as a starting duo. But Tommy Eichenberg, especially, Gaynor, undrafted free agent. I know that's like the fans, team's darling there. The fans love him in Vegas, and I think Tommy Eichenberg is the same as well. I just think that he didn't really get his chance yet. And Tommy Eichenberg, not saying he's going to be Robert Spillane, but Divine Diablo last season didn't play much, was injured. This isn't just a one linebacker system, though. Divine Diablo played 75% of snaps in 2024. Not a lot. You can't really do much fantasy value with that. But in 2022, he played eight games, and 6 out of 8 of those games were 100% snaps. Of course, the other 9 games he missed due to injury. But this is this is a backfield where they do deploy 2 linebackers. So don't look at it last year and said, oh, their second linebacker, Divine Diablo, only played 75% of snaps. I do think the second linebacker will garner more snaps than that this season. So I think while the second linebacker spot is not going to be a huge juicy landing spot for an IDP linebacker, not a lot of tackle production there. I do think in deeper leagues the LB2 there can hold some value. So whether it's Roberts, Eichenberg, Devin White, 2 of these guys have to emerge. Of course, the middle linebacker is going to have, we think, more value, but I think that there's going to be enough snaps here. Hopefully, the second linebacker can get some love too. So 4 names here could easily be the vets, could easily be the younger guys. It might be a mess. It might be the vets to start it off, but don't forget about Eichenberg. Put him on your watch list. Keeping tabs with him over the training camp, and let's see where it goes. All right, before we move on to my next tandem here, I want to talk about our IDP Plus website. Right now, go to idpplus.com, become a subscriber if you are not already. I know we're talking preliminary to the season, but I wanted to show you one of my favorite stats to use that I will be considering. I didn't consider it for this exact podcast, but upcoming when we talk about linebacker rankings, defensive back, and DL rankings, redraft that is, we will be referring to our weekly fantasy finishes. That is one nice perk that I like about the IDP Plus website. You can literally change your scoring. We have tackle premium, which I rock with, big play premium, balanced scoring. You can see over the last 3 years, 22, 23, and 24. So if you want to see who was how many top 10 finishes Bobby Wagner had, you can see it right on my screen. It shows that week 1, he was, the 4th best linebacker, 52, week 3, 221, and so on and so forth. So this is a great barometer if you want to look at kind of like consistent linebackers. Not something I'm considering when we were looking at training camp, but absolutely when the redraft IDP rankings come out, something I will heavily consider. So become a subscriber, and you can check out our tools. We also have weekly snap counts. Let's see what else we have. Weekly snap counts, injury report trackers, team fantasy points allowed by position. So a lot of nitty gritty tools here that our site gives you access to. So once again, idpplus.com, and then you go to, once you make an account, you can just hover over tools to see. We have bets, we have rankings, a bunch of stuff too. So become a subscriber today if you are not. I appreciate it. So moving on, we are going to talk about, after the Vegas linebackers, we're moving on to Cincinnati, another place where we can have 2 potent IDP linebackers. We did last year, Logan Wilson, and then it was Jermaine Pratt, even Akeem Davis-Gaither, when Wilson got injured, came in and did well. So this season we're looking at, of course, Logan Wilson is there. He's the middle linebacker, but as it stands right now, they do still have Jermaine Pratt. He is listed as the starter, but the word from the team right now is they might be waiting to cut him. They might be waiting to trade him. Good landing spot might be Indianapolis for Jermaine Pratt. Maybe they can get a move done. Maybe that's why they're holding off. They don't want to just cut him and let Indy have him or another team have him for free. Maybe they want to get something for him, see what a team, make him sweat a little bit, and see if Jermaine Pratt draws some trade interest. But as it stands right now, Jermaine Pratt, absolutely a banger. Next to Logan Wilson. Pratt's only 29 years old, had a career year, 143 tackles in playing 95% of defensive snaps last season. This is not a one-hit wonder. Jermaine Pratt, in 89% of snaps in 2023, also delivered a solid linebacker IDP year with 118 tackles. So collectively, we're looking over 250 tackles the last season. So still 29 years old, prime of his career. Jermaine Pratt, whether it be with the Bengals or another team, I think can still be an IDP staple for us this season at least. But if he's gone, or if they decide to cut him, or just keep him as depth, Demetrius Knight is a guy who has a lot of intrigue. Demetrius Knight, again, a high round pick, second round pick by the Bengals, so they must see something in him. He's getting first team reps as it is in mini camp right now. So we're excited about Demetrius Knight. This is a great landing spot. Again, we've seen two linebackers have steady IDP value here for a few years now, so he's in a great spot. Let's see if this first team reps can evolve into the training camp, and he can be that full time weak side linebacker next to Logan Wilson. So juicy spot here. Let's see what the beat writers, what the training camp reports come out for Demetrius Knight. Maybe this is a guy who we can sneak and get for a low value, but as it stands right now, with the hype he's garnering and getting those first team reps, and with Jermaine Pratt's uncertainty, Demetrius Knight, every day that comes closer to the regular season is a day he's going to get more notoriety. So right now he's a sleeper, may not be for the whole entire offseason, but we like what we see so far with the rookie, and I think if he gets the nod, again, maybe not a week one guy you draft with confidence, maybe in a shallower league, you draft him as a backup and then wait it out. I do think Demetrius Knight will have his time this year. So again, not somebody who I'm right now drafting in a shallow league and starting as my second linebacker, but definitely want to have him before people sniff, have the good sniff on him and pick him up. So Demetrius Knight, keep him on your watch list. We got the last two training camp battles we're watching. We're gonna go next to the Chargers with Diane Henley and Junior Colson. You heard me mention Junior Colson before. That was our darling coming into 2024 last season. Had an appendectomy. Did not really play meaningful snaps. Only 29 tackles on 32% of the team snaps. We know Henley's a dog, right? Henley, 147 tackles, 17 games played, kind of like maybe left a bad taste in our mouths with a 0 tackle game versus the Patriots to end last season. But we know who Henley is. I'm high on him this year. You'll see that reflected in my linebacker rankings coming out shortly. But don't forget about Junior Colson. I wasn't willing to pay the price tag. A lot of people had him as their number one dynasty linebacker last year. I really didn't think too highly of him. The reason was simply because he had that injury, and we looked at Diane Henley. That was the guy who 2 years ago we expected him as a rookie to do all these great things, and he just didn't play. So I took that with a grain of salt, and I said that maybe the Henley syndrome might come around with Colson, and that's kind of what happened. Not necessarily due to lack of solid play, but more so to injury. Kind of got lucky with that one. I guess you can say it was a good call, but last year was not the time to buy in on Junior Colson. The price tag was just way too high. I get it. Michigan coaches coming there, the defensive coordinator, and, of course, head coach Harbaugh. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe the second year is when it all clicks for Junior Colson. And now that the price tag is so low is kind of when I'm looking to buy in now, because if he is that player that a lot of people thought, maybe they were right, and he is such a great linebacker and it translates into IDP. This is the year to kick the tires on that. If you're in a league where you're going to start the year with some bench IDP linebackers or positions in general, maybe Junior Colson's one of those guys to consider. I certainly think that they're going to need more than 32% snaps out of their second linebacker there this year in LA. So Diane Henley, don't look at him last year and say that's what he's going to bring this year. They certainly need him more. He certainly has the potential, the familiarity with the coaching staff. So the price tag is so low that he is absolutely on my watch list. Not going to be a week one starter in any of my lineups, shouldn't be in any of yours. But don't forget, Diane Henley was redshirted too, and maybe that's kind of what Junior Colson's running under too. So somebody who maybe he doesn't even start. There's a real reality of that he kind of has to earn that starting gig now. I assume he will be the number 2 linebacker next to Henley, and who knows, maybe Junior Colson can kind of take some luster away from Diane Henley. That is a little bit of a worry on my mind, but Diane Henley is not really getting I believe, the correct praise that he should. So because he's a little bit slept on, I still love Henley for the price he's going for, but Junior Colson, again, don't forget about him. Add him to your watch list. Maybe stash him if you have the room. Could pay dividends. The price is right. Finally, the last and most regrettable camp linebackers situation I want to talk about is the Houston Texans. They have Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry 2020, Christian Harris, and they signed EJ Speed there. Straight mess. If there's one guy, if I have to rank these guys based on, I'll rank them twice. The potential wise, I believe it goes Azeez, Christian Harris, 2020, then Speed. But if we're talking, who can give me the most value right here, right now, if I have to start one of these guys in week one, it would still be Azeez Al-Shaair is the number one guy I'm taking. I'd probably take Henry 2020 next. He's listed as a starter right now, got meaningful reps, a couple double-digit tackle games last season. So maybe he's on the ascension there. Then I'd probably take Speed and then Christian Harris. Christian Harris, you just got to get healthy. I think Christian Harris might have the highest upside out of all these guys, but we got to see it first with him. But let's talk about the first and foremost guy on both of my rankings there for the Texans was Azeez Al-Shaair. I still like Azeez Al-Shaair. The price tag is so low right now that I'm absolutely buying in. This is a guy who I had ranked as a top 10 IDP linebacker last season for redraft, that is. And I stand behind that. I don't believe last season was the real look of who Azeez Al-Shaair is. Last season, 11 games played, 70 combined tackles. Decent. Nothing to write home about, but it was decent. It wasn't 2023 Tennessee numbers we saw out of Al-Shaair when he had 163 tackles, 2 sacks, 9 tackles for loss in 17 games played. But let's not forget about Azeez Al-Shaair. Let's not cast him away just yet. Keep in mind, one of the things about Azeez Al-Shaair last season, he had that hit, I believe it was against maybe the Jaguars, that he was deemed a dirty player, that he got suspended for. That kind of threw a wrench in his season. I read articles now talking about how he said that really put him in a bad mental place last season. And even with that being said, 3 of those games, he only played 11 last season, but in 3 of them, he had over 10 tackles. So he was injured, he was suspended, but still was able to find success last season when he was on the field, right? 50 to 60 tackles in 8 games because 3 of those games were kind of nullified, right? He had the injuries that when you got injured, you only played 25% of snaps. He had the game where he got suspended, only 40% of snaps. So let's throw 3 out of those 11 games away. In those 3 games, he played light snaps. He only had 10 tackles, which means in the other 8 games, he had 60 tackles, which is pretty impressive. That's a good ratio. That's 7.5 tackles per game when he was starting and playing all those snaps. So let's just put it this way. Those games he played healthy last season, I know it wasn't the same pace as he had for Tennessee, but still, averaged 7.5 tackles when he was playing over 80% of the snaps. If he would have done that for 17 games, he would have ended with 128 tackles, which would have been fine. We would have talking about Azeez Al-Shaair a different way. So don't let the bad year kind of affect you too much. This is the only guy who's really I'm penciling in as a starter. Like that's the only real guarantee. He'd have to really get injured to lose his spot right now. The other guys are not guys you want to mess around with in week one. Maybe one of them can raise in the ranks and become that solid LB2, whether it's 2020 Harris or Speed. But right now, the only guy we're looking at is Azeez Al-Shaair. Don't forget about him. I'm still high on him. I think that he's going to have a bounce back year. He's got kind of getting a mental reset with those games off with suspension and injury. Let's hope he gets healthy and he can maintain that middle linebacker job and get back to IDP production. And this is absolutely, again, a guy that I'm looking for coming in redraft because just he's so low right now. I see him going outside of the top 20 as far as redraft linebackers. I'm not going to keep him out that far on mine. To me, he's somewhere between 15 and 20, no lower than that. So Azeez Al-Shaair is definitely on a good spot to bounce back. But just looking at those other linebackers real quick, Henry 2020 in 2024 had a solid year, 115 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and an interception in 15 games played. So with missing 2 games, he still had 115 tackles, very impressive. But one thing for me, a grain of salt, if I want to look at devil's advocate here, is a lot of that production came when he was the main linebacker. Azeez Al-Shaair was suspended and injured for half the season almost. So Henry 2020 was the number one guy there. He's not going to be that as it stands this season. Did have 3 double-digit tackle games. Did play an average of 85% of snaps. So let's just say if Al-Shaair was off the map, then 2020 absolutely picks up where he left off, but that's not exactly the case. And now he's got guys breathing down his neck. EJ Speed, not saying that he's a starter as it is right now. I don't think he's a starter. I think he's depth. We know he got signed cheap, probably a backup right now. Didn't get a big contract. Teams didn't really have much confidence in him. Had missed tackle issues, trouble in pass coverage last year, so he's going to have to earn it. But EJ Speed is a Texas guy. He was grew up in Texas, has some familiarity with D'Amico Ryans there. He worked him out when he was coming into the league. So EJ Speed is not somebody who I completely want to forget about just yet. Again, 142 tackles in Indianapolis last season. Not a sacks guy, not interceptions, not a splash play guy. But again, we're here for the tackles. He gets the starting nod somehow, some way. EJ Speed's back on the map for me. And finally, looking at Christian Harris, again, the guy who you got to stay healthy, huge potential. This is a guy who's had sacks in multiple games before. Every year he's played, albeit in small sample sizes, over 2 sacks a year. So Christian Harris may be that guy in more of a tackle premium. In a big play premium scoring. Not sure he did eclipse over 100 tackles one season. I believe he started 12 games, played in 15 that one season a couple years ago. But right now, we're just going to remove him from the maps. He's not healthy right now. He's got to get healthy, number one, and then he's got to beat out 2020 and Speed. So a big mountain to climb there for Christian Harris, but definitely, again, the guy who I believe, even with Azeez Al-Shaair there, has the most potential for IDP if it does work out somehow, some way. So right now, Azeez Al-Shaair is the guy we're hunting. We're going to wait and put it on pause, see how the other 3 shake out in training camp, and watch what happens. So again, like I said, the next episode, we're going to have some redraft rankings. Stay tuned. Wanted to mention before I sign off, get the Bob Lung consistency guide. For those who are unfamiliar, Bob Lung is I'm sure you know him by now, but he is the main representative, the spokesperson for the Fantasy Football Expo. So right now, you can get a leg up on your opponents with Bob Lung's 10th annual edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide for 2025. Purchase yours for just $15. Again, coming back to IDP, big thing is consistency, right? Can you do things? Can you make tackles? Can you get the snaps consistently? So check out Bob Lung's Consistency Guide. And finally, speaking of the Fantasy Expo, go to the Fantasy Expo. I was there last year. Get your 2025 Fantasy Football Expo tickets at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. It's this August 8th through August 10th in Canton again. Check out the new fan packages, and you can join us and other well-known content creators like myself at the NFL Hall of Fame and Village. So with that being said, thank you for coming back to the IDP Plus podcast. Any questions you have, write them down underneath the video. I will get back to you. I appreciate the follow on Twitter, and I will give you more information coming up. So we will see you next time on the IDP Plus podcast. Thanks for rocking with me.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.